What is the best focal length for portrait? 50mm, 85mm, 135mm, or wide angle 24mm? Let's discuss a little bit about this topic and let's see some example shots. Hello YouTubers, my name is Attila Máté from Blue Sky Photography, and today I'd like to talk to you about the best focal length for portraits. What is the best focal length for portraits? I would say that many photographers will argue about this topic, because some photographers, they will say that the 85mm is the best focal length. Some photographers will say that the 50mm is the best focal length. Some will say that the 200mm. And some people will say that any focal length. Now, what is my opinion? I would say that the best focal length for portraits is the one which will give you the results you want to achieve. So, if you want to achieve some kind of look in your portrait, the best focal length for it is which one will give you the look that you want to achieve. I don't know if it's understandable, hopefully it is. So I will explain what I'm talking about. First of all, you must know the effects of different focal length in your pictures. And what are the effects? Now, different focal length will affect your pictures in a different way. And if you are a photographer, probably you know that wide angle lenses, they tend to distort. And as you go up with the focal length, you know, as you go towards the telephoto, and the distortion will slowly fade away. So that's why many photographers will say that the best focal length for portrait is about 85mm. Now, in my opinion, I am a wedding and portrait photographer, and I did a lot of portraits with 85mm. I did a lot of portraits with 28mm, with 50mm. And I have to tell you that it all depends in which situation and, like I said, what you want to achieve in your pictures. And I will show you some pictures. I made a test the other day, and I will show you some pictures in that test, you know, with different focal length, and what is the effect of different focal length on your photos. So we get into my computer, and let's see what effect you get with a wide angle lens and what effect you get with a telephoto lens. So let's see the pictures. So we are in my computer now, and let's see some example photos with different focal length. Now, as you can see over here, I made this test in my living room, and it was just a quick let's say a quick test, you know, to see the effect of different focal length on your photos. Now, as you can see, my friend holds the measuring tape in his hand. And why is that? So he holds the measuring tape so you can see that every picture was framed in the same position. I mean, he was just sitting over there, and he didn't move at all. And I was moving towards further away from him when I changed the focal length. So when I was wide, I was close to him, and how I get towards the telephoto end, I had to go further and further and further away from him to get the same framing, you know. So he's like the same in the frame. So let's start with the first picture, which was made in 18mm. You can see on the left side of the screen over here the EXIF data. The picture was made with the Nikon D7200 Sigma 18-35 f1.8, ISO 100 at f1.8. So let's not forget that 18mm on the Nikon D7200, which is a crop sensor camera, it will be 27mm. So actually the angle of view, what you see over here, it is 27mm on a full frame camera. So just look carefully on the surroundings and the face. You can see that this is 18mm. Now we go further, and we can see over here that this is 25mm. and the same camera, the same lens. So if we compare the two, 18mm, 25mm, you can see that the face is dramatically changed. I mean, on this first picture, the face is oval. It's like an alien face. I call it alien face. You know, it's longer, like in the second one. And you can see that the perspective of the picture, if you check here the background, the perspective also dramatically changed. I mean, just look over on this side. You can see the curtains on both sides. And when we move over here, you can see almost nothing from the curtains, you see? That's the difference between 18mm and 25mm. Like I said, this is in crop sensor, it means 28mm, and the 25mm will mean 37.5mm. So let's look at the third one. This is the third picture, which is at 35mm, meaning on full frame 50mm. Now, as you can see, the curtains disappeared completely and the face starts to get the normal shape, you know, like what you can see with your eyes. That's why many people say that 50mm is the kind of nifty 50, they call it, you know, many photographers. And that's kind of the normal lens, they say, when you see what your eyes see. So that's the 35mm. On the crop sensor, it will be like 50mm on a full frame. So this is that focal length. Now, if we go further, this is 50mm, and as you can see, the background is again smaller. You can see that the framing is the same. I mean, my friend is not smaller or bigger, you know, it's the same framing. That's why I said the measuring tape is important, because you can see the same numbers over here from 1 to 25. He holds up the measuring tape from 1 to 25 inches. And as you can see in the first picture, which is from 1 to 25, you see over here. So it's very important to understand how the focal length will affect your background as well, not only your photos. So 50mm, this is 50mm, you can see, which on full frame would be 75. Now we get close to the point where many photographers, they say that this is the perfect focal length for portraits. And that would be the 50mm on the crop sensor and 85mm. Well, this would be 75 on the full frame. In my opinion, starting with 50mm, you see this is 35, but in full frame 50. That starting from here, you know, the face is okay. It is changing, but it's not bad, you know, it's okay. And if we go to the next one, which is 85mm on the crop sensor, which would be about the ones, just do the maths, 85, 127mm. So let's say kind of almost 130mm. And that is again, you see, between the 85 and the 130, I mean 50mm and the 85mm, you don't really see the difference. It might be a little bit confusing that I say all the time the both of them, you know, so I would say I don't say, only I say what the camera recorded over here in the EXIF data, because it will be confusing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, for the crop sensor, you have to multiply with the crop factor, which is 1.5 in the Nikon's case. So that's why I say when I speak about an 85mm, I speak about a 130mm, because 85 multiplied with 1.5, it will be roughly 130mm. So let's talk from now on only about this millimeters, which is recorded over here in the EXIF data. So that would be the 85mm. And the next would be the 100mm. This is 100mm. And this is 135mm. Now, if you compare this picture, the 135, with the first one, which is 18mm, then you will see the big change. And look at this. You can see over here the face, the alien face I was talking about, and you can see in the background how big is the background comparing with 135, where you can see it's almost half, you know, the background. If we go back over here, you can see that in the 135 you only see this part of this plant. you can see it's something like that much you see in 135. Just look at again, I just switch. Look at this, you see? This is 135 millimeter. So I would say, in my opinion, starting with 50 millimeter with this one, the difference is not very big. It is big in the sense that the background will change, the compression will be different. But in the same time, the face, it's okay. If you just check, you see the face is almost the same. It is a little bit of difference, but it's not big at all. And that's the reason, because once you are at 50 or 85 or 100 millimeter or 135, you have to be further away of your subject. With 18 millimeter, with this picture, I was like 60, 70 centimeter, the lens was 60, 70 centimeter of his face. I mean, he was even joking, you know, that I will hit his nose with my lens, you know, so I was so close to him to get this shot. And that's why you can see the face is alienated, like I told you. Now, let's see some other examples. I mean, some wide shots, which one I did with wide angle lens. And I think that, in my opinion, it is really, really good. So let's see in which situation you can use some wide angle lenses and you can have great results. So let's see a little bit this. Just 1 second, I get into those photos. So let's see a few photos from my wedding portfolio, and let's see what millimeter I used. And I will show you mostly some pictures. This was made with 50 millimeter, by the way. And I will show you a few photos with wide angle lenses. So just to understand in which situation you can use a wider angle lens and you can achieve good results. I mean, the example, this photo was made with a 28 millimeter lens, as you can see over here, and it was on full frame. So you can see over here that it was made with the Sony A7R. On that time I was shooting with Sony A-mount cameras, the Sony A7R and the Sony A7 Mark II and the Sony A6000. So I shot this with 28 millimeter, and as you can see, the distortion is not bad because I was far away from my subject. I wasn't very close to him. Now again, as you can see, all these shots were made with 28 millimeter, with the same 28 millimeter lens. All of them, you see over here, all of these shots were made with 28 millimeter. Now this shot was made with a 75 millimeter lens. And I have to tell you that this, sorry, not a 75 millimeter, this shot was made with the 70-210, the Minolta beer can lens, and it was on 75 millimeter, yes. So this was a zoom lens, an old 30 years old lens, and you can see the image quality is just brilliant. So you can have 75 millimeter, 80 millimeter, and this was a 90 millimeter, as you can see over here. But in the same time, you can have wider shots, and the shots can be, I mean, this shot, look at this shot, this is 28 millimeter, again with the Sony A7R. So you can use wide angle lenses, no problem at all. You just have to know what is the effect, what you will get on your photos, and you will have to know what do you want to achieve. So this shot again, with, you see, with the Sony A7R 28 millimeter. Now this is a panoramic shot which is stitched together. You know, this was made from two different shots, and you see one of those shots is this one. This is one of the shot, and then I made another shot from here, and I just stitched together. So this is a panoramic shot made with 28 millimeter. Now again, something I want to tell you, that it is very, very important that you don't get close to your subject, like I said, because if you get closer to your subject, your pictures will be more and more distorted. So these are the effects what you will get with different focal length on your photos, and you must know very, very well your lenses and your cameras, and you must know with what focal length what effect you will get. So if you want to achieve something artistic or something like that, you can use different focal length. It's, in my opinion, it's not like this is the best focal length and that's it. No, if you want some different look in your photo, you can use almost any focal length, even a fisheye lens. I mean, it's but in the same time, you have to know the distortion, you have to know everything, the effect what you will get in your photos, and then you have to work according to that. So I hope that this video was helpful to you guys, and I hope that you could learn something from it. And thanks for your support, and if you like this video, please like and subscribe and share my videos. And other than that, I wish you a nice day, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.